Hilchos Shegagos Perek Shlishi. Mi shehid olav edim shechot chet shechayoven olav chatos kvua v'lei hisru bei. Because if they would have been master him and he would have done it, so he would have been chayiv, whatever he's chayiv. Or chayiv Kris is a chayiv at least malchus. Some of them chayiv misa. But they were not master, but they're saying they saw him do it. Ela amru rinucha shasisa malacha b'Shabbos eshachal techelev. Behu emer ani yedea bevade shalei asisi davar zeh. He's denying doing it. The Edom are saying he did it, and he's saying I didn't do it. So the din is eini chayiv chatas. He's not chayiv chatas, even though the Edom are saying he did it, and he's saying he didn't do it. We take on that he's not chayiv chatas. Why? Because hail vim yemer mezid yisi. In the chipotim in a carbon, he has the option to say mezid yisi. So mele, the fact that he ate it doesn't really mean necessarily that he's chayiv chatas. Is kshamalem leachalti v'leasisi is nase keemer leachalti b'shgog el bezon. Whereas if he would have said clearly that leasisi b'shgog el bezon, he would have been potter. Lepel is saying leasisi, and he could be saying leasisi le b'shegig v'le b'mezid. But lepel, since he has that ability to say that achalti mezid, so we're taking the words that he said leachalti and we're interpreting it, we're translating it that it means that leachalti shegig el mezid. Shuhu potim in a carbon v'lehikrish zayim. Because if we would really assume that he's taka saying leachalti and the Edom are saying achalti, so then the Edom would have been believed against him. Because even though he has a migo, he could have said achalti mezid, but an Edom, a migo can't be believed against Edom. The reason why we're believing him is because lepel, he has an amonos to say leachalti shegig el mezid. And Memela, now when he's saying leachalti, we're understanding that even though he's taka saying leachalti, but the pshat of leachalti means he doesn't want to say achalti mezid. So therefore, the pshat of leachalti means I leachalti the way you're telling me achalti, which would be shegig. No, leachalti. It'll barely saying leachalti shegig elemezid, but we're saying pshat that leachalti shegig elemezid, leachalti shegig v'lemezid, that it means leachalti shegig elemezid. We're saying pshat in his words, even though he didn't really say it, and he maybe even said beferish vakert. He said leachalti leishegig v'lemezid, but we're saying pshat that it means to say leachalti shegig elemezid. Halacha beis. That's talking about if he's contradicting the Edom. However, Shosag, v'lehifligas Edom, and Nochmer, not only there was Edom, Afirul Amr leisha, achal techelev, or yasisa melacha b'Shabbos, and v'Shosag. So the din is chayiv l'havi chatas. When there's an Eidachot, even an Eidachot, which is an Isha, says that achalta, so he's chayiv l'havi chatas, if he doesn't contradict them. Now, Amr le'Eidachot chelev uzah, and then v'Shosag, and then v'chazar v'okla b'shgaga, is also maybe chatas, because the Eidachot has the namonos to establish that something is chelif. V'im hisru bei is leikolav afal pi sheikar eidus beidachot. In other words, Eidachot came along and said this was chelif. Then later on, two Edom saw that he's eating something which an Eidachot said was chelif. So the din is that he's chayiv chatas, even though ultimately, he's chayiv malchus, even though ultimately this malchus is being based on what the Eidachot said. But the pshat is that Eidachot is naman to establish that something is chelif. And Memela now it's a fact, it becomes a fact that this thing is chelif. It was based on what the Eidachot said. And now when the two Edom come along and said he ate it, either b'shegig, if he comes along and eats it b'shegig, or if two Edom come along and said he ate it b'mezid, so then either he brings a carbon or he gets malchus based on this reality that it's chelif. Halacha Gimel. Kfar biyarnu behilchas psuli hamukdashim, shamafrish chatosi ala chelev she'achal, is lei v'yana ala Shabbos shechilul el adam she'achal. In other words, he doesn't bring when you bring a chatas, you bring a chatas also with a specific aveira in mind. The aveira that you did, that's what the carbon chatas is being nifresh for. Mafresh chatosi ala chelev she'achal, lei v'yana ala Shabbos shechilul el adam she'achal. Shenama v'hevi korbanis iras izim v'gemer al chatosi al shechotas. So we learn that actually a korbani l'shem chetei lei sheyakrivenu mechet al chet. A chatas which you were makar for one chet, you can't bring for another chet. The im hikriv and lepel, if you brought a chatas that you were mafresh for chelev, you brought it for Shabbos, so then it's pasla, it's psola, it's possible. That's the number one. Now Yesra al Zamru, furthermore, hifresh chatasi al chelev shachal emish is also leivianu al chelev shachal ayim. However, by this din is vim heavy keeper. If you're a heavy keeper, so there's two dinim. You shouldn't. If you brought you mafresh achatas on one aveda, you shouldn't bring it on another aveda. And if you brought on the other aveda, it was late keeper. And then if they were the same aveda, but it was an avera you did yesterday. You shouldn't be bring it for a chatas for a avera that you did today, but the same avera. And it was achal chelav emesh and ba'achal chelav ayem, and he was hifrish achatas for the chelav shachal emesh. So he shouldn't use that chatas for the chelav shachal ayem. However, vim heavy keeper. The ein tzarich lema shem frisha aviv v'mes v'hoya ben mechuyev beisi achet shalei yivienu al bet al ben al chete commissioners borsham. It's a little shver this the ein tzarich lema because it sounds like the ein tzarich lema it's the same gather. Because here the gather is a person has to bring the chatas for the chet that the chatas was designated for. So if the chatas was designated for chelev, he can't bring it for Shabbos. Al derech zeh, if the chatas was designated from the chelev of yesterday, the lechatchila shouldn't be brought for today's chatas, for today's chelev. But with the evidence kosher. Now there's another din that a person that was mafresh a chatas for something and he died, so that's a chatas shemesu bala, and the din is a chatas shemesu bala tamus. But you can't bring it. Because obviously the father died, so now the chatas became a matzav of tamus. So obviously the son can't bring it for anything. He can't bring it for the same avera that he brought yesterday, and he can't bring it also for the avera for a different avera. There's nothing to talk about. So it's like not so glatik. Frisha oven for mess, and the exact same chet. So that would be like similar to chelev v'chelev, where over there the din was lechatchila you shouldn't bring it. So it would sound like Madach, the father, shouldn't bring it from the chelev of yesterday to the chelev of today. So certainly the son shouldn't bring it from the chelev of yesterday to the chelev of today. But lepel it's a completely different din. By the father for the chelev of yesterday and the chelev of today, b'diavad is kosher. By the ben, the chelev of yesterday and the chelev of today is not b'diavad kosher because the chatash meisu b'allah it's possible. So the lashon ein tzarich le'mekilu was saying the same din, but was saying it by a ben. It's not the same din. So you have to say ein tzarich le'mar. So that it's going on the first din. The father was mafresh it for chelev, so he can't bring it for the dam. So al derech the father was mafresh it for chelev. So if the father was mafresh it for chelev, so the father can't bring it for dam. So ein tzarich le'mar. If the father was mafresh it for chelev, the son can bring it for dam, and if the son brings it for dam, it's possible. But also it's not so glatik because the son can't bring it for chelev either, and it's possible also because it's a possible katos. Over there, it's not a posel chatas. It's a good chatas. It's just the problem is that you're not bringing it properly. Over here, when it's a chatas shemesu b'aleh, l'chura the chatas becomes always good chatas. Not only the son can't bring it. It's a chatas shemesu b'aleh. It's a posel chatas. Halacha dalet. Hamevi chatas or shnei chatoim. A person did two averos. He ate chelev and he chal Shabbos, and he goes ahead and brings one chatas for these two averos. So the din is tira at sheyipol b'mom, and then v'timocher, and v'yavi b'dmei chatzia lechet zeh, or b'dmei chatzia lechet hasheni. So in other words, he has this carbon, which this carbon is for both chatois and for both averos. And lepel he can't bring one chatos for both averos. So Mamela he goes ahead and yira at sheyipol b'mom, and he divides the money for one avera and for and one chatos for one avera, one chatos for the other avera. V'chein shnayim sheviu chatos achas or shnei chateim. So again, two people can't bring a chatas together. It's not because a chatas could be brought b'shutfus. So the din is also tira chiyipol b'mum v'timocher v'yavi zeh chatasi b'dmei chatzia v'yavi zeh chatasi b'dmei chatzia. So the din is side one person is bringing for two chatois, for two different averas, and now there is two people are bringing maybe for a similar avera, but lepel each one they can't bring a chatas together. So therefore, tira chiyipol b'mum and they divide the money. Halacha. Hevi shnei chatois al chet echad. The person did one avera, and he goes ahead and brings two chatois. He was mafresh two korbanos. So the din is yakrav eza shir. So he could be makrav either of them. Makes no difference which one was hufresh first. And then vashniya tira chiyipol b'mum, and v'yipol damel l'nedava, which is the meser chatos. The meser chatos yipol l'nedava, like we learned. Halacha vov. Hevi shnei chatois al shnei chatoim. Is the din is till now we're learning that if you mafresh a chatas on one chet, you can't bring it on another chet. So we're assuming that you were mafresh the chatas on a chet. Over here we're talking about a person did two chatoim. He was machal Shabbos and he ate chelev, and then he goes ahead and he was mafresh shnei chatois, but he didn't designate which chatas should be for which chet. He brings two chatois, and then whichever one he'll bring for whichever chet, that'll be the what it'll be for. And he didn't designate which one for be for which chet. So the din is zut t'shachad l'shem shecha echad chet echad. He brings it to Beis Hamikdash, and he tells the kohen to shecht one, or whoever shechts, for this chet, and v'ashliach l'shem chet hasheni. In other words, it doesn't have to be designated b'shas hakdusha, b'shas hakrova. That's when it's designated. Halacha zayin. Kvar biyarnu b'hilchas ma'asav korbanos, shehamumer lavi dezara, lechal shabbos b'faresya, ein mekabel mimenu korban klal. Someone that's a mumer cannot bring a korban. That's din number one. Din number two, v'hamumer la'avera mishar averas. A person is a mumer for a particular avera, so the din is ein mekabel mimenu chatois al eisei achet. For that chet, he can't bring a chatas. Kesad. Mumer lechel chelev. And lepeil she'achel chelev b'shgaga. He didn't eat the chelev b'mezid. He ate it b'shgaga. And now Vehevi Chatasi is bringing a chatas for the chelev that he ate b'shgaga is ein mekabel mimenu. Ad she'yazer b'tshuva. He has to be chayzer b'tshuva and stop being a mumer lechel chelev, and then he could bring a chatas. Afilu haya mumer lechel chelev l'tiyoven. And when his chalif l'peli is a mumer lechel chelev b'yoven. In other words, he wouldn't go ahead. If he has an option of chelev v'shuman, he would eat shuman. He wouldn't eat chelev. In other words, he doesn't eat chelev in spite. He does it l'tiyoven because he's hungry and whatever, and there's nothing else, so he eats the chelev. And lepel the neschalef lechelev b'shuman v'achle. And lepel he wouldn't have eaten it if it wouldn't be neschalef. And lepel the heavy carbon is a mekabel mimenu. Why? Because when a person goes ahead and eats chelev b'zodin, bein lahachas bein l'tiyoven is a mumer. He's considered a mumer. So a mumer lechelev, whether he's a mumer lahachas or l'tiyoven, either way has a din of a mumer, and ye'im mekabel mimenu carbon for chelev. Hayu mumer lechel chelev and lepel v'shagig v'achar dam is mekabel mimenu k'misha b'yanu. So that's the rule. The rule is a mumer lavi zara l'shabbos. So then he can't bring a carbon klal for any averas until it becomes uis mumer. Mashenkin, if he's a mumer for a certain avera, whether he's a mumer lahachas or l'tiyoven, so you can't bring a carbon for that avera, but he can bring carbon for other averas. Now, halachash ches, misha shagag, v'hifrish chatosei, and v'achar kach nasa mumer. So he was mafresh already the chatos, and now he's a mumer. And then v'chazer b'tshuva. Oh yeah, another situation, the shtata. So he can't bring the carbon because he's a sheta. And lepel v'chazer v'nishtapa, and now he became healthy again. Is afalpi shenitcha ha-carbon b'intayim. In the middle, there was a carbon that was originally kosher. Then the carbon became possible. As the carbon became possible, he's not able to be makar of the carbon. It's not absolutely the carbon, but he's not able to be makar of the carbon because he's a mumer or a sheta. And now is in a matzah which he should be able to be makar of the carbon. He's no longer a mumer. He's no longer a sheta. So the din is hareze chazer v'nira. So now it becomes eligible to be makar, and he could be makar of it. She'ein balichayim nidochim k'misha b'yana built up sulam v'gdoshim. So even though it was in a state of dochui, you couldn't have brought it. But the rule is ein balichayim nidochim, and therefore since ein balichayim nidochim, so therefore the din is that he could bring this carbon. Leficha yakrivena atzmi, he should bring this carbon itself. Doesn't have to go bring a different carbon. She'eim sheneled b'mum eivav v'nisrabi is chezul kashrus. So just like the din is that if a person has a behemoth, and then it was a behemoth that was a kosher behemoth for he was marked the shit for a carbon, and then it became a mum aver. So at this point in time, he could not bring this as a carbon. And then later on, this mum aver went away. So b'meila he could bring it. So we see from here that even originally it was royal carbon, and then it was nitcha, and then it was chazer, and it was niseder that now it became better. So therefore, it becomes. It's not, you don't say kivish nitcha, but you say that now he could be it becomes chayze v'nira, shem shemneled b'mum ever v'nisrapi. Just like if a person had a behema, he was mafresh a behema for a carbon, and then the behema had a mum ever, and then the behema was nisrapi. So the din is yazil kasrushay, it's chayze v'nira, it's kachim, nitchua bailam, v'chaz v'nira is also yikr. Halacha tes. Chayvi chatois v'ashomis v'adoim she'over aleim yom kippurim. So even though yom kippurim is a yom slichu mechira, so there would be a svara to say that you're chayv achatos to bring mechila, but yom kippur itself is a yom mechila slicha. You bring the soyer, you bring the soyer mishnaleach. So l'chura there would be a svara that you no longer have to bring the korbanos for averis. So the din is no chayovin lahavi la'achar yom kippurim. Even after yom kippur, you still have to bring your chatois v'ashomis. However, v'chayvi ashomis tluyim. Someone that's mechuyev in osham tali, which is an osham that comes for someone that's not sure whether or not he was chayav achatas. So then it's p'turim. Shenamar mikil chatiseichem lifnei Hashem titoru. So kach lomdu pi hashmua shekol chet she'ei makir be'el Hashem is niskaperli. So there was a chet which ein makir be'el Hashem, and he knows about the chet, but lepel he's not sure that he did the chet is niskaperli. So lepel, l'mashal, if a person did a avera which is chai v'chatois, and lepel he forgot that he did it, and now after Yom Kippur he reminds himself that he did it. So lepel, even though lepel at b'shas when it came Yom Kippur he didn't know about it, but that's not called lifnei Hashem, because lepel he's able to remind himself. Lepel he doesn't know about it, and he's consciously not aware of it. But later on we see he became aware of it, knows he reminded himself he did it, or someone reminded him. So lepel, so it's a matzav where he was able to know about it. So therefore that doesn't go into the category of ein makar el Hashem. She'enkin something which even when he knows what he did, he knows that he ate something which was a suffix chelev and suffix shumen. And lepel, he knows that he ate it, but it's lepel, it's a suffix. So that's considered so he's chayiv in oshim toli. So that goes into the category of kol chet shein makar be'el Hashem niskaper. Lefichach misha ba'al yodi suffix aveir b'yom kippurim. Now Yom Kippurim is also chayiv krisus. There's a chorus for doing malacha on Yom Kippur, and there's chorus for achila for Yom Kippurim. So if a person has a suffix whether he did malacha on Yom Kippur, or there's a suffix if he had achila Yom Kippur, afilim chashecha, even if it's mamish before night, those late Yom Kippur afternoon, right before night, is potter Roshim Toli Shekol Hayem Miskaper. The entire day is mechaper by Yom Kippur. So Mameli, even if there's an Oshim Toli which he has to bring for the creases of Yom Kippur, he never brings the Oshim Toli for the creases of Yom Kippur. Nimtzas Lomed She'em Meviin Alei Heida Shleim HaKippurim Oshim Toli Elim LeKippur Yom HaKippurim K'mei Yisbar. If it's in a matzah where Yom Kippur is not mechaper for him, as the Ram will soon say, so then, if it's in a matzav that Yom Kippur is not mechaper him, and he did an avera in Yom Kippur, and he's not sure that he did the avera, so Mameli is chayiv in Oshim Toli, so then he's mechuyev in Oshim Toli for the avera of Yom Kippurim. Now the Ram teaches, so he's in halacha yud, ein Yom Kippurim, v'lei achatas, v'lei ha'oshim mechaprim, ella halashovim, hamaminim bekaparasa. In order for Yom Kippur, now there is a achatas and oshim to mechaper, he has to be someone that's doing tshuva, and he's ma'aminim bekaparos. Aval mevayit behem, someone that's mevayit in the kapara of Yom Kippur, which the Ram will take choice, einem l'chapim. You can't be in this kapar, not with the chatas, not with the osham, and not with Yom Kippur if you're a mevayit behem. Ketzad hoya mevayit, v'hevi chatosei e'ashamei. So what does it mean hoya mevayit? V'huemer, a mechashem b'libe she'ein eila mechaper. Whereas a person is bringing the chatas, he's bringing the osham, but in his mind it's ein eila mechaper. Is afal bishakarva k'mitzvasa, is leinas kaperli. The pale, not the chatas, he was yetzer, not the osham, and Yom Kippur also didn't help him to take away the osham toli. And therefore, sheyagzir b'tshuva, mibi itase, when he'll start being a maimin and understanding that Yom Kippur and chatas and osham is mechaper, sheyagzir b'tshuvasi mibi itase, tzorech lehavi chatasi v'ashami. V'chein ha-mevayit b'yom ha-kippurim, ein Yom ha-kippurim mechaper olav. Lefichach im nischai b'osham toli. Person did something on Yom Kippur which is normally should be mechayiv in Oshim Toli. Because there's a suffix if he did a malacha or he didn't do a malacha, a suffix if he ate or he didn't eat. And lepel v'avar of Yom Kippurim v'hu mavayid, but he was being mavayid b'Yom Kippurim. So the din is harezil in chaper. So Yom Kippur wasn't the chaper, and therefore kshiyazu b'tshuva ach Yom Kippurim is chayiv lahavi kol Oshim Toli sheyechayiv. So then he's b'chuyev to bring all the Oshim Tolis. So in other words, nachamos. So we have a din that Yom Kippur doesn't take away the chi of chatas and osham, chatas osh and osham vaday, but Yom Kippur does take away the chi of an osham toli. So if a person was mechuyev an osham toli, and then there was Yom Kippur, so Yom Kippur was mechaper for the chi of an osham toli. We learn out that kol chet shein makar be'el Hashem lifnei Hashem chatisechem lifnei Hashem titoru chatisechem shein makar el Hashem. So that's nischaper. So that goes into together of an osham toli. Now, however, if a person was mevayit b'Yom Kippurim, he didn't believe in Yom Kippur, so then Yom Kippur is not mechaper. So then Yom Kippur won't take away his chiyuvim of Oshim Toli. So generally speaking, there's no mitzias of an Oshim Toli for a shigas Yom Kippurim, for a suffix shigas Yom Kippurim. There's no mitzias of such an Oshim Toli, because lepel Yom Kippur is mechaper. Yom Kippur is mechaper. The only case would be in a case where he's a mevayit b'Yom Kippurim, so he did something on Yom Kippur, and it's a suffix whether or not he actually did the Aveira, and Lepel, he was a Mavayit B'Yom Kippurim. So maybe Yom Kippur wasn't the chaper, and then when he'll do tshuva, so then he'll be able to bring the Oshim Toli for Yom Kippur. And that's also has to be Yachzeh b'tshuva. In other words, if he's not doing tshuva for these Averis, he doesn't bring an Oshim Toli either. But it's just like if he's not doing tshuva, so he doesn't bring a Chatus and an Osham. So Al Derez, if he's not doing tshuva, he doesn't bring an Oshim Toli, he doesn't pashtus on Hashmos. Halacha Yud Aleph. Kol HaShomer Shebetera, Ma'akvnes HaKapara. If someone's B'chuyiv an Osham, so that bringing the Osham is essential, is Ma'akvnes HaKapara, Chutz, Mi'asham Nazir. Now the din is that a Nazir that became Tomei, he has to bring a Chatas Ha'ef and an Elis Ha'ef, and he also has to bring an Osham. So the din is, in order for him to resume his Nazirus, because he became Tomei, so Mimela his Nazirus was Nifsak, and then he starts again counting his Nazirus after he brings the Karbonis. Now with the carbon that's essential in order for him to resume and start the Minyan HaNazirus again, because the Minyan HaNazirus fell because of his Tumah, is only the Chatas Ha'ef. Hashenkin the Osham is not negeh. That's he's saying. Kol Hashem Shebetera Ma'akvnes HaKapara. It's essential. You have to bring that Osham. Chutz mi Hasham Nazir, and Hasham Nazir it's not negeh that it should be brought. In other words, even if you don't bring the Osham, it's negeh to be brought. But even if you don't bring the Osham, so you could continue you could restart the Minyan HaNazirus. Not really sure how this din comes in over here. This next din is Shegagos over here. And the Rambam says there's a Suffolk Nazir. If a person is a Suffolk, whether or not he was Tamei, or Memele he has to bring a Chatas Ha'ef mi Suffolk, or the Suffolk Mechusri Kapara, so again he's a Suffolk Mechusri Kapara, so he has to bring a Chatas Ha'ef mi Suffolk. And al derez of a Suffolk Seita is, every Seita is really a Suffolk. So she brings the Minchas Knois, the Mincha that she comes together with a Seita. So even though these are really things that are coming as a Suffolk, nevertheless, Kulan Mevin Korban Niseim Achrei Yom Kippur. So we learned before that a Noshim Nazir, the Noshim Toli, which is Baal HaSafek, over there, Achrei Yom Kippur, you don't bring it. Masha'en Ken Benegei HaSafek Nazir, and al derez HaSafek Mechusei Kapara, and al derez HaSeita, which is also essentially a Safek, and they have a Chi of carbon. There's a Safek of they have a Chi of carbon, or there's Safek Mechusei Kapara. So all of these Kulan Mevin Korban Niseim Achrei Yom Kippur. So this is Bepashtus, the Hamshech HaDvarim, that these three, even though they're a suffix, but there's no change of Yom Kippur. It's not like an Osham Toli. Shenkin, the first part of the halacha, Kol Hashem Shebetera Me'akvnes HaKapara, Chutz mi Hasham Nazir. I'm not really sure what's the connection to this din over here. Halacha Yud Beis. Mi shu mechuyev chatos hayosham, v'arehu yetzi mi bezen liharik. So I say, imo yezivchi zavuach, if it was already geschochten, now the question is only we have to wait for the zrika, is mashenesi achi yizorik adam v'achar kach yihorik. Because through the zika he has the kapara. However, v'madayin le'nishchat hazevach, there was no shchita yet. So even though he's mechuyev to bring the chatos and the sosham, and his yotzi leharik, so we say, ein mashenesi achi yakriv olav, but you're hearing him miyad even before the shchitas, hachatos, the shchitas sosham.